All right, so we're going to end week 10, the fatigue week, by talking about muscle soreness, and really it's pretty straightforward. Okay, so we're going to talk about the difference between soreness and cramps. So when we think about soreness, we've got acute soreness. Remember, acute, kind of short term. This is something that we feel right after exercise. Okay, so kind of the achiness, stiffness, tenderness. What this is caused by is by hydrogen ion. Again, notice there's nothing in here about lactate. So also caused by tissue edema. Okay, so fluid is leaving the plasma going into the tissues, and this causes muscles to swell. However, when we're talking about this acute soreness, this is something that usually goes away within a couple of hours. So this is not something that's long-lasting. However, then there's DOMS, and DOMS are really the devil. Like, I hate them. Okay, this is something that you feel a day or two after you're exercising. Okay, so I think about DOMS, right? I've mentioned how I am doing this weightlifting thing for PE 392. I'm tired, I'm fatigued on Tuesdays and Thursdays when I go home, but sometimes, especially on Wednesdays and Fridays, the day after, I am sore. Okay, now DOMS can range from being just kind of a minor annoyance to something that's pretty severe and it's hard to move. We don't actually know what causes DOMS, but this is something that seems to occur during eccentric contractions. Now, I remember the time that there's actually two times where I experienced severe DOMS. One of them I intentionally did. I guess both of them I did. One was I was doing a race, and then the other one was I was doing a study. And the study was actually trying to understand DOMS and what causes it, that sort of thing. So for that particular study, I was on a treadmill. I ran, I think, 6.5-minute miles for 45 minutes. And the treadmill was at an decline, of like 5%. So I was running down a hill, 5% grade for 45 minutes. It was awesome. I could run fast. I felt good. And then the next day happened, and I felt terrible. The other time I did this was a similar type of exercise. It was my first marathon. And in that one, I was in St. George, Utah, which is a little town just outside of Vegas by about an hour and a half. It's in the southwestern corner of Utah. It's where all the Red Rock is. And basically for this marathon, they drive you 26 miles out of town and they have you run into town. Okay, well, it's mostly downhill. And so that's a lot of eccentric contractions on your quads. And so the next day I woke up and I could barely move. And ironically, or interestingly might be a better word, going downstairs was the absolute worst. My quads did not like it. Going upstairs, no big deal. But going downstairs was some of the worst pain I've ever felt in my life. So what they think is happening is that the tension caused by eccentric contraction is damaging the cell. Okay? And so okay, sorry about that. I had something come up real quick, so I kind of stopped mid-sentence. All right, so what is happening is that with these eccentric contractions, you're producing a lot of force or a lot of tension, and so that puts some serious force and strain on the connective tissues as well as the muscle fibers. And so a couple other things happen. We inhibit cellular respiration, and they alter. One of the interesting things and kind of strange things that I think I've got a picture of here is that the Z lines, I don't have a picture, is that the Z lines actually move. They're shifted. They're not lined up like they normally are. Okay. And so that really messes with contraction. And as a result, there's an inflammatory response that occurs. Okay. And then to top this off, not only do you have this inflammation, you stimulate nerve endings, and nerve endings being stimulated is never a good thing. That hurts. This also leads to edema. So this just sounds super fun, right? Like we all want to experience the DOMS. I'm sure we've all experienced them before, and probably all want to stay away from them. All right. And so the order's a little weird. I probably should have just done muscle cramps first. But muscle cramps are involuntary contractions that occur either during or after exercise. And again, we don't completely understand how what's causing them. So there's two theories. So there's the neuromuscular theory and the electrolyte depletion theory. And if I'm being honest, I believe it's most likely a combination of the two. So with this neuromuscular theory, you've got some sort of change that's occurring between the motor neuron and the muscle cells. So there's lots of places where this can happen. And so as a result, you become fatigued And this excites muscle spindles, and then this inhibits GTOs. So if you remember what we talked about last week, I believe it was, muscle spindles prevent contraction, muscle spindles cause contraction, GTOs inhibit contraction. All right, so if I excite a muscle spindle, I'm going to have contraction, right? So remember, going back just the simple patella tendon knee reflex, what you're doing is you're activating muscle spindles, and that causes a contraction in your quads. Okay, so muscle cramps might be caused by some sort of stimulus exciting those spindles while also inhibiting Golgi tendon organs. So as a result, your motor neurons doing wrong things or firing incorrectly, and you get these involuntary twitches that don't feel good. Okay, and then the other theory is this electrolyte depletion theory. It's similar to heat cramps. Basically what happens is muscles lock up. Okay, I go back to, I think it was 2013. I'm trying to remember for sure, but I think it was 2013. It was actually. The Heat were playing the Spurs in the finals, and in one of those games in Miami, LeBron James cramped up pretty bad, and people have gotten all over him for that and saying he wanted out, he was weak, this, that, the other. If you've got muscle cramps, you've got muscle cramps, right? You can't really just magically overcome that. You can't magically push through that. All right, and so the way that this theory says, or what this theory says is going on, is that you sweat a lot, you become dehydrated. Not only that, you're getting rid of sodium and chloride and all these other ions, and so you're messing with the gradients. And so that can cause fluid to move from places where it's normally at to places where it's not normally. And so what happens is you can have fluid that goes inside the vessel. This can also increase neurotransmitter concentration, and then this, coupled with the fact that the neuron just becomes extra excited and hyper excited, what we mean by that. So more negative, and so it can be also difficult to reach threshold. And so you get these involuntary contractions, you can't counteract them, life sucks, it hurts, it's painful, and you just kind of have to wait until things get back into balance so you can start doing whatever it is you're doing, whether it's running or jumping or whatever. And so with that, we're going to end the fatigue unit.